The new Eevee render engine in Blender 4.2 will be insane. We can now create realistic renders of interior scenes with global illumination without worrying about setting all of these extra stuff like irradiance volumes and all of that stuff. Let me show you how to set up realistic interior daytime scenes with the latest Blender 4.2 and the new Eevee. So I've just downloaded the latest experimental build from blender.org. So it's Blender 4.2 alpha for me in this case. But by the time you're watching this video, probably Blender 4.2 might have already been out. So I'm going to go ahead now and create a simple room. So to do that, I'm just going to select the default cube, and I'm just going to hit number 1 on my numpad to put it into front view. Then let's tap into edit mode and hit GZ1 so that we have the floor lined up with this red axis. The average height of a room is about 3 meters, usually 2.7 to 3 meters. So I'm just going to go ahead and just rotate the scene a bit. So go to face mode by selecting this, select the top face, and then go ahead and hit GZ1 to increase the height to 3 meters. So we have 3 white boxes over here. Each of these boxes represent 1 meter. So we have a 3 meter height room. For the length of the room, I'm just going to go SX2. So it'll be a 4 meter room, 4 meter length by go SY2. So it'll be a 4 by 4 meter room with a height of 3 meters. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to cut a hole in our room. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this face over here. Let's go ahead and hit E to extrude. And then straight away, right click your mouse. Extrude in place. Hit S to scale down. And let's make a little window like this. Okay, then hit X to delete this face. So delete face. So we have a little hole in our room like so. All right, so now we want to position our camera inside the room. So I'm going to go ahead and tab out of edit mode, select the camera, and then with that camera selected, I'm just going to go ahead and navigate inside the room manually. So let's just scroll in and position where I like to have my camera facing like this, and then hit Control Alt Numpad 0, and that will immediately snap your camera to inside of your room. Okay, so now we're just simply setting up the shot for our room. The camera is a bit wide, so I'm just going to go to the camera settings by clicking this data tab, change this to 35 millimeters, or it depends. I might even go lower, 25 millimeters, so we get more of a wide angle, and that should do it. Let's just position it something like that. All right, cool. So to see what the scene looks like in Eevee Next, we can simply go to this camera settings, and we have here Eevee and Eevee Legacy. You don't want to use Eevee Legacy because that's the old Eevee, and there's no global illumination, and there's also a lot of features that are lacking in Eevee Legacy. A lot of the limitations comes from how the light bounces and also with materials. So if you want a more realistic look, you want to use the new Eevee that's available over here. That comes with Blender 4.2. So let's just quickly have a look at what that looks like in rendered mode. So let's go ahead and change this to rendered mode. And we can see that we're getting a bit of light that's coming from the default lamp, but it doesn't really look all realistic. I mean, I can go ahead and delete this lamp and add in a sun lamp. So sunlight, and let's point it inside the room like so. And let's change it to a yellowish color. And let's make the strength 8, so it's a bit strong. So if I go back into my camera view by hitting numpad 0, we can see that the sunlight is coming through the window, but the rest of the scene is black. So this was an issue that we had with the old Eevee Legacy. Another issue that we had with Eevee Legacy is these little lights that are coming at the corners over here, which are called light leaks. So at first glance, you would think something's wrong, and Eevee is no different to the old Eevee. But we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. So one thing that's lacking obviously is global illumination. We have sunlight that's coming here, but this light isn't being bounced off the walls and creating that global illumination that helps to add that photorealism you usually see with renders. So to do that, just go to this render tab, and what you'll notice now is that there's a new option here called ray tracing. So you want to go ahead and tick that. So immediately you start to get this global illumination. So light is now bouncing off the walls, and yeah, it's starting to look a little bit more realistic. So if I expand this, there are these options over here. I would keep this at screen trace. For resolution, I would keep it at 1:1 because that's the highest quality. So if you want to work with the viewport a bit more fluidly, put it down to 1:16. If you want to have a very accurate render, change it to 1:1. And also under screen tracing, I'm just going to expand this out. Let's turn this precision up to 1. So it's just a bit more accurate. So in other words, fast global illumination approximation. I'm also going to change this resolution to 1:1 as well. And we want to turn this precision to 1. The next thing we want to fix is these little light leaks that you get at the corners over here. Because this is not a physically based renderer, it will continue to have these issues. So it's not really avoidable. So the best way to fix this light leak issue is really just to add thickness to this cube. Right now there's no thickness at all. We just want to add this thickness. So let's go to the modifiers panel, add modifier, generate, solidify, and turn the thickness up. Like that. And let's make it even thickness. Like so. Okay. And now you'll notice that these light leaks have disappeared, which is great. So that solves that problem. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You won't get light leaks anymore. Now we want to create a realistic interior scene. So how do we create a realistic interior scene with Eevee? So the first thing is you don't want to use a sun lamp. You want to drive the lighting using HDRI because that's a lot more realistic. So let's go ahead and delete our sun lamp. Let's go ahead and download a HDRI image. For HDRI skies, you can just go ahead and Google free HDRI skies and go to any website that has free HDRI skies available to download and just download it. In this case, I'm using one from polyhaven.com and I'm going to use this one, Rural Asphalt Road. Okay. It is a CC0 license, so I can use it for pretty much any scene I want. And it is quite big, so 77 megabytes. But this will contain all the lighting information that is required to light up our scene. All right, so back in Blender, we have this scene with no lighting. To add lighting, let's go ahead and drag out another window. So I'm going to click and drag this up. Let's now change this to the shader editor and change from object to world. Okay, and we can also go over here for the world. Okay, so both of these should represent the same thing, except this is in node view and this is in properties window. You can change the world from the properties window or the node view. So to start off, let's just use the properties window. The background currently is just gray, so we want to change this to an HDRI image. So click this button over here and change it to environment texture and open our downloaded HDRI image. So we've loaded our HDRI image and straight away you can see the difference in our scene. I don't know why we have two different light sources here. Let me select the sun. Ah, yep, sorry, we have a sun over here. We don't need the sun anymore, so we can go ahead and select that sun and delete it. All right, so now we have this HDRI that's driving the sunlight now. And we also have the blue colored sky also lighting the inside of the interior room. So what I might do is I might just move the camera down a little bit and rotate it up. Now I'm going to go ahead and use these nodes to further control the look of the sky. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this background. And let's put both of these as the same HDRI. And then I'm going to mix those two shaders. So shader, mix shader. You might be wondering, why am I doing this? Why am I putting the same shader and just mixing it? It'll just be the same thing. Well, I'm going to go ahead now and add in a light path node. And I'm going to use this is camera array and use that to control the factor. So basically, it allows us to control the intensity of how we see the sky, like the image itself, and the actual intensity, the strength of the sky in our image. So this allows us to control the look of the sky and the intensity of the sky itself separately. So for example, if I turn the strength up over here, you can see that we can make the intensity of the sky very low, but the sky outside still looks quite blue. Whereas over here, we can control the intensity of the look of the sky. So in this case, the sky looks dark, but the inside of our room looks more lit up, like the strength of it is more lit up. So we're separating these two. So in this case, I want the sky to look blue, but I don't want it to have too much of an impact on the interior. So that's why I'm toning it down a little bit. Maybe 0.7 would be fine. I don't want it to be too overbearing. Okay, so that's looking good. And one final thing I want to do is I want to control where the sunlight is coming from. So right now, I'm quite lucky that the sun is actually coming through the window like this, but for your case, you might not get that situation. So to fix that up, go ahead and go input, texture coordinate, I believe, and then shift A, vector mapping. Okay, you want to connect this generator to this vector node, and this vector to this vector, and then you want to rotate the Z until the sunlight over here, you get it in the place that you want. So I might do it like that, which looks good. I probably don't want to see too much of this grass, so I might turn the Y down a little bit so it's out of view. Okay, so we have something that looks a bit like that. All right, so that's looking good. Next thing I want to do is we want to start adding materials. Okay, so for the materials, I might just go out of the material mode for a second, go back to solid mode, and let's also turn off the solidify on our room for a second. So I'll just turn this off by clicking on this one, the real-time viewport. And let's go ahead now and start to add materials for the room. So let's go ahead and select our room box, go to material. By default, there's a material already allocated. If you haven't got one already, just go ahead and hit plus. I'm just going to call this one wall. Let's add another one. I'm going to call this one floor. Let's add another one. I'm going to call this one ceiling. Okay, so now we're going to assign parts of our room to these materials. So let's tap into edit mode. Let's select the top. Let's assign this one as a ceiling. So the top one will have a ceiling material. These ones over here will be the walls. So let's go ahead and assign this as the wall, which is already there by default. So I didn't really need to do that. And finally, we're going to click the bottom over here, the floor, and let's select the floor and hit assign. Also, what I want to do is I'm just going to do some quick UV editing. So let's go to UV editing. This will allow us to project materials onto the walls. So let's go to the front, to the side view like this, and select all the walls that you can see in view like this, and go U, project from view. Let's go ahead and select these sides, go to the front view where you can see the selected one, and go U, project from view. So we have all the walls projected from view. Let's go ahead and select the floor and the ceiling. Let's go to the top view, go U, project from view, and I think that's it. So we've done the UV editing, and now let's go ahead and add the materials. I know I'm going through this quite fast. I don't really consider this as a beginner tutorial, so I'm just going to assume you know how to add materials and what I mean by UV editing and all that. If you want a more beginner tutorial for this, let me know. I might make a separate video on it. Okay, so let's go ahead now and assign our materials. So for the materials itself, I'm using this one from ambientcg.com. So I just go ahead and download the 4K version of this one called Plaster 02. And the other one I used for the floor, I used this one over here, but actually you can use anything that makes sense to you. You can use any of this, whichever floor you like to use for your interior scene. It could be wood, it could be tiles, it doesn't really matter. Once you have your materials, let's go ahead now and select our wall. Okay, so I've downloaded my images and I'm just going to go ahead now and import them into Blender. So make sure you have the wall material selected, and I'm just going to import in the one that says color, displacement, the normal DX or GL, I don't know if that makes a difference, but I'm just using DX, roughness, and I think that's it. So let's go into the view again. For the color, I'm just going to go ahead and plug the color into the base color, like this, and the roughness into the roughness. The normal, we'll come back to that. The displacement, I'm just going to connect it directly into this displacement over here. The latest Eevee does support displacement. For the normal, I'm just going to go ahead and add Shift A vector normal map. Let's bring the color into here, and then the normal into the normal. And I'm just going to change this color space to a non-color. So now we can see that there's two issues. The texture is looking too big, and two, there's too much bump going on, too much displacement. So first of all, let's fix up the texture size issue. So let's go to UV editing. Let's go ahead and select the walls. So let's go to materials. I might just turn this to material view. Yep, let's go to materials, select the wall, select. Yep, so that's all the walls. And then in the UV editor, select them all and just scale them up until it gets to a size that you like. I think that's looking okay. That should be good enough. And next, let's fix the displacement issue. Let's go back to the shading, and the displacement issue is coming from here. So let's go ahead and hit Shift A, converter map, and let's plug it into here and change this to multiply. All right, and let's put it down to like 0.1. So it's quite subtle. I still think the texture size is too big, so let's just go back to UV editing and scale it up even more. All right, so that's looking okay. All right, so the walls are now done. Next is the floor. So I'll pretty much do the same thing with the floor. Nice. So we can see our scene is now coming together, and it's looking a lot more photorealistic with all the bounce sliding. Let's turn the solidify back on again. Just to finish off this scene, let's go ahead and add in some furniture. So for the furniture, I'm using blenderkit.com. I downloaded this add-on from blenderkit.com, and I just installed it by going edit, preferences, and in extensions, under this one, choose install legacy add-on rather than install from disk, and then you just find that zip file. And then now you'll be able to download 3D models directly into your scene. So in this case, all I did was I find the model that I like, in this case, this chair, copy link, go back into Blender, let's search that, and hit enter. It'll search it, it'll find it over here. All you have to do is right click, click and drag from here and find wherever you want to put it and just drop it. Then you just let it download. And once it's done downloading, I'm just going to go ahead and select this collection over here. Right click and select objects. And go RZ180. And let's just move the sofa a little bit out like this. So we have our sofa now set up. And I might just add in another asset. Some are free, some are full plan. I just went with the free one. I used this glass coffee table one. Get this model, and I just copy the link and just dropped it into my scene. And let's put it in there. Cool. Let's go ahead and select this. Sorry. Let's select the glass coffee table, and I just move it a little bit over here. Okay, and we're not seeing the glass material come through. I think that's because this object over here is covering the actual glass. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one out of the way. And still we can't see the, the reflection through the glass. In order to be able to see through the glass, we need to also do one more thing. We have to go into this, back into the render settings, and in screen tracing, the thickness, just increase that to something like 15. Also, we want to go ahead and select the glass material itself. So make sure the glass material is selected. And under the render method, you want to turn on ray trace transmission. So now we can see right through the glass, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much it. What I then did was I added light rays, so volumetrics. So to do that, just simply go Shift A, mesh. You want to add in a cube, like so. I might just put it down small for a second. Let's add in a new material. Okay, so we'll just call it fog or something like that. This doesn't really make it look realistic. It's a bit more stylized, but it just makes your Eevee scene look a bit cool. So we just go, where's the, yeah. All right, so for the material, we're not going to use a principled BSDF. Rather, we're going to use a principled volume. And let's connect the volume to the volume, like this. Yep, cool. So if I just go ahead and select this cube and scale it up so that it encompasses the whole room, like so. And what we want to do is now change this density to 0.1. All right. Okay, so it's looking better. And we want, or maybe let's go to 0.2 so that we see a bit more of the rays coming in. I might just give it a bit more of an orangey yellowy tint. Maybe we might just go to 0.3. Yeah, so starting to be able to see that. And let's go back into our render settings and change the samples for both render and samples over here to 100. All right, and I might just fix up the lighting. I might just change the lighting. Let's go to world and turn the intensity up of this one to 1 actually. Or 1.2. Yep, so it's looking good. And yep, I think let's move the camera down a bit further. All right, let's just give it a quick render. So we can see that we've created this photorealistic scene with all this bounce lighting in pretty much no time at all using the new Eevee. We can then go into compositing and use nodes and start to add all these nodes that you're generally used to, like chromatic aberration. So let's go lens distort, add this over here, distortion 0.02. Let's go fit 0.02, color, adjust, color balance. If you want to change the mood, you might go like, let's make it brighter. All right, and so add the bloom so that see something like that. So we have a final render that looks like this, that looks like it was created out of Cycles or Lumen or whatever. But actually, it was created with the new Blender Eevee, and I barely made much alterations to like the existing shaders and all that stuff. So it's quite amazing what the new Blender Eevee can do. So give this a try for yourself and let me know what you think.